Hep Stars. The beginning. Originally, the band called themselves Quartet Yep. Their repertoire included various styles of music, from Latin dance to rock, in order to get as many gigs as possible in varying venues. Influenced mainly by Frisk, their music started to veer towards rock roll and pop. The band decided a more intriguing name was in order, and on Frisk's suggestion Hep Stars was chosen. The idea came from a line in the Bill Haley song Razzle Dazzle. It's the hipsters' dance with a slight alteration in written form. They started to get support gigs also closing after the headline act. A typical gig had them playing for around 4 hours with one set of rock. Hegland called Hedlund to fill the singer's slot for Frisk, who had temporarily joined a tour backing band for some extra money for a new guitar amp. The band quickly noticed Hedlund's abilities as both a singer and a frontman. On Frisk's return, they shared lead vocal for a period of time, with Frisk singing the more straightforward rockers and Hedlund handling the ballads. By summer 1964, they were performing to audiences of 2,000. The rock scene took note of them after one evening in Nalen, the most important rock club in Sweden during the 1960s. The main act failed to appear and the Hep Stars, the support act, filled in to great acclaim, especially among rockers, or raggar as they were known in Sweden. Their reputation started to spread through word of mouth. At this point Hegland managed to persuade the music businessman and Alger record label owner Ake Gerhardt to be their manager. After the group's first single Kana Kapala, 1964, the original keyboard player, Hans Östlund, was asked to leave because of relations growing sour, especially with Hedlund and founder member Pettersson, who left the band fed up with squabbles. He was asked to rejoin and the band continued as a four-piece for a short time in autumn 1964. Hedlund owned a van and occasionally drove other bands to gigs. One of these bands was Elverkets Spelmanslag, so Hedlund saw Benny Andersson performing, making an impression with his quick runs and fill-ins. On Hedlund's suggestion, Andersson was called for audition. In turn, Andersson had earlier read a tabloid article about the camping car Hep Star used when touring, and which could hold both band and the equipment. This assured him that Hep Stars had it going, along with their assuring comments on the current scene. The band had become what is considered to be the classic line-up: Sven Hedlund vocals, Jan Frisk guitar/vocals, Benny Andersson keyboards, Lennart Hegland bass guitar, and Christer Pettersson drums. The fans were soon to absorb their nicknames Sven, Jan, Benny, Lelle, and Chrille. Breakthrough, 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 ooh, breakthrough, ooh, ooh, breakthrough. Hep Stars recorded their next 3 singles in one 6-hour session, without overdubs on 3-track equipment. They performed in the TV program Drop In March 1965. In April, they had 3 songs in the radio playlist Top 4 at the same time: Cadillac, Farmer John, and a tribute to Buddy Holly. On the sales chart, Cadillac and Farmer peaked at #1 for 1 week and 4 weeks respectively, while Tribute peaked at #5. Hedlund became the band's figurehead and the first true pop star in Sweden, the band itself being headline material in tabloids and various youth-oriented magazines. Other Swedish bands, such as Tages and Shanes, who largely wrote their own songs, made a remark on Hep Stars using cover versions. This motivated Andersson to try to write songs for the band. Also, it was a hard job to try to find fresh songs for the band's repertoire. The first song he introduced to band was No Response, which reached #3 in the charts. The band was at the height of popularity, especially among rock audiences, during 1965-1966, with both cover and original songs. In 1966, they performed 150 gigs in Sweden alone. The popularity grew rapidly, and the band was highly successful also in Norway and Finland, making several tours in both countries. Mainstream success: Break Up. I Natjag Drawn, the Swedish version of Last Night I Had a Strangest Dream, was a massive hit in Sweden, but being a folk song divided the band to a degree. It also caused confusion among rock-oriented fans. The band continued playing up to 200 gigs in 1967. However, problems arose when the backup organization made a less than adequate job with the tax authorities and in the general running of the business. At the same time, the general economic situation in the country started to stagnate towards the end of the 1960s. Together, they forced the band to navigate towards a wider audience and the showbiz scene. The American singer Charlotte Walker joined in 1968. This move contradicted especially with Frisk, who was eventually asked to leave early in 1969 due to diminishing interest. Bjorn Ulvaeus from the Hootenanny Singers stepped in. The original member leaving the band led to mixed feelings, and the decision was made to call it a day after fulfilling the tour contracts. The band played its last gig in August 1969, after which Andersson, Ulvaeus, Walker, and Hedlund left the band. It went through several lineup changes before finally breaking up in the early 1970s, with Hegland the only original member. Afterwards, Andersson and Ulvaeus continued, with Hedlund and Walker making a show tour with the comedian Finn Alberth. After that, Hedlund and Walker formed the duo Sven and Lennart, who recorded the Swedish original of the ABBA song Bang a Boomerang. They established themselves and enjoyed considerable success, especially in Denmark and in mid-Europe. Having established their partnership in Hep Stars, Andersson and Ulvaeus continued both as a songwriting team for Polar Music, as well as the duo Bjorn and Benny, which eventually led to ABBA. After a break, Frisk, Hegland, and Pettersson formed Gummi Bandit and released 3 albums in the 1970s. In the 1980s, a wave of 1960s nostalgia swept Sweden, and the members had a discussion about reforming the Hep Stars. They made some successful tours, with Benny Hedlund replacing Andersson on keyboards. In 1990, Hegland stepped down, with Hedlund following suit a few years later. For the 40th anniversary collection, Cadillac Madness 40 Years 40 Hits 1964-2004, they re-recorded some of their hits as well as some new songs. Jan Frisk, Charlotte Walker, and Sven Hedlund occasionally play concerts together with guest musicians under the Hep Stars flag. Notes on songwriting. Songs written by Benny Andersson. 1. No Response, Benny Andersson. 2. Sunny Girl, Benny Andersson. 3. Consolation, Benny Andersson. 4. Sound of Eve, Benny Andersson. 5. Isn't It Easy to Say, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus. 6. Lady Lady, Benny Andersson. 7. Wedding, Benny Andersson and Sven Hedlund. 8. She Will Love You, Benny Andersson and Sven Hedlund. 9. Like You Used to Do, Benny Andersson and Sven Hedlund. 10. It's Nice to Be Back, Benny Andersson. 11. Sagan on Lille, Sophie, Benny Andersson and Lars Berghagen. 12. Flower in My Garden, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus. 13. Suddenly Tomorrow Is Today, Benny Andersson and Lars Berghagen. Berghagen. 14. Songs We Sang, Benny Andersson and Lars Berghagen. 15. It's Been a Long, Long Time, Lars Berghagen and Benny Andersson. 16. Spelleman, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus and Cornelis Verius Wake. 17. Crazy Sam alla Andra, Benny Andersson and Bjorn Ulvaeus. The album The Hep Stars 1966 is probably the most ABBA-related of the pre-ABBA period. It includes several songs written by Andersson and Isn't It Easy to Say, the first joint composition by him and his new friend Ulvaeus, then a member of the acoustic group Hootenanny Singers, who mainly sang in the Swedish language. On the same album there was another song, No Time, written by Ulvaeus alone. No Time was also recorded by the Hootenanny Singers in an acoustic version. Andersson and Ulvaeus also wrote 2 songs for the album Hep Stars på svenska spelaren and Precis som alla andra and Flower in My Garden, which appeared on the album Songs We Sang 68. Among the hits were I Net Jag Drömde, a Swedish version of Last Night I Had the Strangest Dream, Mike Berry's a tribute to Buddy Holly for Sweden, Malaika with lyrics in Swahili, Wedding, Consolation, Cadillac 1 Sweden, Farmer John 2 Sweden, No Response, and Sunny Girl. The group's last hit in 1969 was a cover of Speedy Gonzales. Discography: studio albums, live albums, compilations, relations. Singles 1964-1969. The book Cadillac Madness den Uiterlige Berättelsen om Hep Stars had a bonus CD with 4 unpublished songs from 1966-67. 1. 1966. Someday Someone Andersson Hedlund Band version. 2. 1966. Ragdoll Bob Crew Bob Gaudio. 3. 1966. Someday Someone Spinet version. 4. 1967. Masses Mess Benny Andersson, Lennart Fernholm, Jan Frisk, Christer Pettersson, a studio jam with the road manager Fernholm on bass guitar.